Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of Activating Magic. I'm your host, Darla Ledoux, and our topic of conversation today, this is a solo episode. It is actually the season ending episode. We're going to go into a little season break, and I'll talk about that and where you can hear more from me during the season break in a moment. But today's conversation is called Uncloak. And it's about how to work with a light touch, how to make your light your money maker. So I'm using the word light specifically, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well in this conversation. But today we are going to look at, why we cloak our light, how the magic types that I've talked about extensively in this podcast connect to the idea of being a light worker. We'll talk about the 4 cloaks, the 4 ways we hold back our light. They're perfectly rational, logical reasons that we do this. And so we'll break that down today. And I'm going to tell you how you can connect with me on season break and actually come play with me in a virtual retreat. So I'm doing my first virtual retreat in well over a year. And it's called Uncloaked, and I'm really excited for it. So if you want to get a head start, go.sourcedexperience.com/pod is where you can learn about the secret podcast. And within that container, you'll get an invitation to Uncloaked. So that link is there. You can also find it, I believe, somewhere on my website. So with that, let me dive into this conversation. So first of all, I had planned a season break for this podcast. I had decided we're going to take the holiday season off into the new year. And I knew that. And then I had communicated that with my team. And then all of life happened. And so if you're a fan, you may have noticed last week we did not have an episode. This episode is going to be the last one for a little while. I am actually coming to you from a cabin, my late cousin's cabin in northern Minnesota. And I am here because, the end of October, I got a call that my dad had been hospitalized and he passed away about a week later from advanced cancer, which we are still not sure whether he knew he had or not. And my father and I were not in continuous conversation. I'd set a lot of boundaries with him because over the years he struggled. Well, I don't even know. I don't want to say that he struggled. He has chosen to have addiction be a big part of his life. And I did not choose that for myself. And so I've had a lot of boundaries with him. And I had recently reconnected with him. And so I knew he was not well, although what he told me and then what happened were not necessarily a match. So here I am. I came to spend time with him at the hospital. I was there when he transitioned. And I am now staying in northern Minnesota as my mom has had a major heart surgery. So all of that's been going on. And I'm so, so grateful that I am here at this lovely cabin. I doubt you can see for those of you on YouTube behind me, but there's a beautiful lake behind me. This is about a mile from where I grew up. I grew up in town, but my cousin had this place on the lake. So I spent a lot of my childhood here, water skiing and swimming and all of the outdoor activities available, hiking and ATVing and all of those things. So I'm coming to you from here, and this season break couldn't be better timed because this period of losing my father and being here to support my mother, they divorced when I was 2. I'm like immersed in the dynamics that raised me, right? That created at least the persona or the identity that I came up with, much of which I've been working to transform for years, right? To become more and more aligned with who I am at a soul level and using my magic and using my light. And now I'm here And I am not the same person that I was 19 years ago when my stepdad passed away. And I am a person who can have different types of conversation. I am a person who can hold my energy and my knowing and my needs and my desires in the midst of all of this that is happening. I haven't been 100% perfect with it, and I am not on the other side of it yet, as my mom gets released from the hospital, we believe, tomorrow. And she'll still need a lot of support. So I'm going to be here through Thanksgiving, and probably it's probably close to Thanksgiving by the time this gets out. But I know that when I come back to our next episode of Activating Magic, I am not likely to be the same human. In fact, I'm probably not the same human right now that recorded the last solo episode on this channel. So much energy is moving as I'm here and doing my best to be present to the energies and the emotions that are happening. I say doing my best because I have also distracted and deflected using Netflix and snuggles with my dog. But I've spent a lot of time in nature and shed a lot of tears since I've been here. And it's so important, right? When we don't get to feel our feelings, they get trapped as stored energy in our field. And shifting the field is often simply feeling those feelings, right? So I've got new feelings coming up. They're activating old feelings that I never got a chance to feel or process. And the transformation that I've been in for about a year now, that's been revealing itself at different layers, we'll say, has a lot to do with the relationship between my mom and my dad and how that was for me growing up. So here I am feeling feelings and getting curious. So I wanted to start by saying that because it's going to give clues as to why I'm doing the things I'm doing next. And as I share the content, I have a fair amount of content for this conversation today. But my intention is to invite you to move platforms with me from this podcast into my secret podcast channel, which is where I am real-time channeling and sharing direct messages as I move through this time of transition. And so that's that link that I said, go.sourcedexperience.com/pod. That's a page where you can pop your name and email in there, and you will get an email to access this private podcast. I'm delivering it via Telegram. And again, it's direct. It's right. Direct is one of my sourced energy words right now. So these broadcasts go direct from my microphone or my headset to you, right real time in the channel. Now, what's really interesting is I developed this. It was a clear, guided knowing to create this secret podcast for the last 4 months of the year. So I've been doing it since October. So if you go pop in there and join, you will be able to binge for a bit. But I thought, this is funny, right? When you make plans, God laughs, they say, which I don't necessarily believe that at all. But I imagined this private podcast being me sharing my experience of moving through my breakup in the relationship that I was in for the last few years. It would be 3 years now had we stayed together as of this month. So I had a breakup and I moved into a new location. And my thought was, I'm going to create this secret podcast to document my experience with this and to share the new decisions I make as I make them, because I know how much gold there is in these times of transformation where it feels like nothing is working. Okay, so a lot of the things I was doing in my business stopped working a year ago, and then my relationship ended, and I knew I'm like, I am building, from ground zero. I'm starting fresh, and I want to take people with me. I had no idea when I created this that my mom would need open heart surgery and my father would die. I had no idea. And so it's even more than I thought, but it's called Alchemy with DelaDee. I'm also trying on DelaDee as my stage name, which I'm loving, by the way. Someone called me this and I immediately had resonance. So it's called Alchemy with DelaDee, and we're about halfway through the experience of these no-cost broadcasts and activations, really. So I'd love to see you there. And this conversation is called Uncloaked, and there's a reason for that. I also have a 3-day virtual retreat that's coming up. It is December 11th to 13th on Zoom, and it is called Uncloaked. And the tagline is, make your light your moneymaker. So that's really the theme of this conversation. And this is the last solo episode I will do in this season. We'll close off the season and we'll take the next couple of months as a season break. I haven't yet been guided to the date we will start again, but 2026 will be a whole new vibration based on me moving through leading the people who are coming to this event. And I hope it will be you. So you can find that information at sourcedexperience.com/uncloaked. You'll find the details of the event. It is $111 for the full experience. And if you join after hearing this episode, you can use the code podcast to save. So you'll receive a discount coming through this podcast. Just use the code podcast. Okay, so now I'm going to dive into the 6 types of magic and what that has to do with light. If our light is our moneymaker. So we're here in the Activating Magic podcast. Our magic is our inner knowing or our divine guidance. It is the way Source wants to work with and through us to create transformation on this planet, to create a higher consciousness. We came into these bodies, and most of us here in the listening, if you're listening, you likely came into a dense energetic, right? Maybe a family that has addiction, maybe where relationships weren't harmonious, where you didn't feel seen, recognized, known for who you are. Maybe it felt a little dense compared to the light you came in with. And that created a lot of friction and contrast. And then you found a way to survive. You found a way to go along, to get along, and to be successful within that framework. And the analogy that we're creating here is that each pattern that we choose to stay safe in that environment serves as a cloak, right? It's like putting a cloak on and helping to keep ourselves safe and protected from the world as a light being. So we cloaked our light to stay safe. And I've been talking about this over the last year or two, probably 2 years, as our intuition blind spot, right? There's something in the blind spot that we can't actually see. We don't even know that we're doing, but it serves to hide our magic and to keep it safe. And it could be that you knew things as a kid and your parents felt really uncomfortable with that and told you that it wasn't possible, or that we just don't say that, right? And they encouraged you to keep that to yourself. It could be that your very loving presence, right? That you came in as an expansive, loving presence, and the level of love that you had, the people who raised you didn't know how to receive it, right? So you learned to hold it back and to make it more palatable or acceptable. You learned to perform for approval instead of to love, right? Maybe you were a seer, and in the seeing, you could see through the veils and the personas that people were wanting to project. You could see through that, and it made them uncomfortable. And so you learned to literally cloak your vision, right? To ignore or to not see, or to find a way to make nice and make it, again, palatable or acceptable. And these are the cloaks that we wear. So within this podcast, at different times, I've talked about the 6 types of sourced magic. They are recognition magic, expansion magic, sensation magic, expression magic, compassion magic, and vibration magic. And you can find a quiz on my website, sourcedexperience.com, if you want to test to see what your primary magic is, or the one that wants to get your attention at this time. Now, I want to walk through these, but rather than teach how I traditionally do, you can find that in the reports. We have a course that lets you learn about all the 6 magic types. I want to speak to how these magics bring light to the world. How these magics bring light to the world. As I moved into my new space, right? So my relationship ended, living in Colorado. I have a new apartment in Colorado that's sort of like I'm viewing as my launch pad as I sort out where I really am drawn to be next. And so what I imagined is sitting on my meditation cushion in my new launch pad and receiving the guidance from Source about what's next and where to go. And again, I'm now in Minnesota and I'm launching from this cabin. And as I was sitting on my meditation cushion there in my apartment in Colorado, I got a message that went like this. It said, Darla, right now, what there is to do is help people to free their light. No, it didn't come in words like that. It was a vision of those of us who came in. And you know if this is you. And by the way, this doesn't have to be a heavy obligation because we want to create with a light touch here. But you know if this is you, if you came in as at this time into a family where maybe there was more darkness and more struggle, to learn to hone and trust your light and to be a guide for others from darkness into light in this time to create higher consciousness on this planet. So I was shown that there are a lot of us who came in like this at this time to be light, and that connecting to other people who came in at this time to be light is critical to strengthen this network of light. And so I saw this sitting on my meditation cushion, and I saw this idea that, hey, we came from light and into darkness. I literally saw it cloaked, right? This cover of density that's protecting the light within. And that we came in to the exact families we did to create this level of density so that we could recognize the light in contrast to that. And that we would learn to hone our skills to trust our guidance from Source. So I saw this, right? Beings of light coming in, wearing cloaks, but the awareness that we're still connected to the infinite light above, right? To Source, to the divine, to collective consciousness, however you want to think about it, and that this is light and that we cannot ever lose it. It may be cloaked, but it's not lost, and all we have to do is to uncloak, and there we are. And the other piece is that, we're here in human bodies. I'm face to face with the idea and consequences of life and death as I'm here right now. And so many of us, and I will include myself, we hold back and we play safe and we follow old rules that other people have given us so that we can stay safe. And be alive in this body, right? And have the resources that we need to feed and clothe ourselves and be cared for on this planet. But really, we go back to light. We came in from light, we go back to light. And there is not anything to lose in the grand scheme of who we are as a soul. And so the other message around, help them to free their light is that we are safe. And, to ask the question, what would we be doing if safety were not a prerequisite? Because ultimately we come from light, we will return to light. There is no real danger here. Who would we be? What would that make available if that were true for you? So that is the idea behind Uncloaked. And for a lot of people I've worked with over the years, we cloak our light work in something practical. Now, that is not bad. That is not wrong. People buy practical stuff often, but more and more people are waking up and are aware that there's more to going about being a human on the planet than just the practical, than just the what did we get done? What did we accomplish? It's who were we being in the process of what we got done? And what impact does that have on the people around us and the energetic dynamics on this planet? It makes a difference. And so if that's resonating for you, I invite you to come to Uncloaked so we can join me on this playground of light to feel how it feels to be in a community where you're received for that. Okay, where you are all up in your magic, all up in your light, and you're received for that. So with that, let me share a little bit. I haven't spent a ton of time with this yet. I know that I will because it's birthing in this virtual retreat that's coming up next month. But there are 6 types of magic, and I want to reinterpret it. So if you've never, engaged with my magic work, definitely go do that. This is not that. I'm going to reinterpret the magics as we think about light. Because I wanted to negotiate with Source, right? I got this vision of helping people free their light, and I wanted to call light, to replace the word light with the word magic, because I am known for magic. I have the 6 magic types. It seemed convenient. And Source said, no, the word is light. Please use the word light. So I'm going to just speak to how I see each of the magic types being a light worker. Okay? So the first is recognition magic. Recognition magic is all about seeing the patterns or the connections between things. It's recognizing when something is coming into your field and knowing it's for you and being willing to move in that energetic direction. So I see recognition magic as shedding light on the threads between people or ideas, shedding light on the threads between me and the next action. And I see it as, in heist movies where they're breaking into a bank and they have those laser alarms, and then they throw, flour or dust or whatever, and the lights light up, and then they know where to step. It's kind of like that. A recognition magician is shedding light on the threads, right? Or throwing powder on the invisible lasers, if you will. They are helping the invisible connection between things to become visible. That's how their light work works. So if you have a client and you're a recognition magician and you're bringing light, you're shedding light on these connections, you're not fixing them, you're not controlling them, you're not telling them what to do, you're simply lighting the way. Expansion magic. This has to do with believing in the abundance of the universe at a very cellular level and knowing which direction is most expansive for you and for others. And so expansion magic lights the path. Okay, so recognition is lighting the threads, which may be past things, right? It's shining a light on the past threads that are going to continue into the future. Expansion magic isn't necessarily looking backward at all. It's simply from this moment, lighting the way of the path of greatest expansion. So an expansion magician just sees that so naturally and helps their client take the next step because they are lighting the path forward. Sensation magic is the third one. Sensation magic is the one where we feel energy patterns in our body. So a way to think about this as a light worker is you physically feel where there's density, whether it's for you or for your clients. And a lot of times our magic works better for our clients than for ourselves because we have attachment to the outcome for ourselves. But it feels physically where the light is flowing and where it is not flowing. So let's say your client has experienced heartbreak. And so they are super loving, but they are not letting themselves share love in the world. You might feel physically a density in front of the heart, and you might feel it within you that the light isn't flowing there for them. And that's what you need to work on, right? So that's just an example of sensation. Expression magic is literally allowing the light to flow through you. In your language, in your word choice, in the tone of voice, in your movement. Maybe it's in an artistic expression. So expression magic is allowing source energy to most directly work through you. And so in expression magic, it could be, I know this happens for me. People come into connection with my expression through my voice and things start to move for them, even if they don't consciously know why, if they don't consciously understand what's happened, because the energy is coming through. A lot of artists have this in their work, right? You might look at a painting and it moves something in you, right? That's a painting that is a light work. Number 5 is compassion magic. This is heart energy. So this has to do with compassion magicians are in non-judgment. So they can see who you are, where you've been, what you've done, and look upon it with no judgment and pure love and compassion, right? Compassion literally means to feel with. And so how I think about the light with a compassion magician, let's say you're holding space, okay? And if you're a retreat leader, you know this phrase, you're holding space. You've got, let's say it's, we're going to imagine it to be physical space. Let's say it's the level of 1,000 square foot retreat meeting area. And you're holding your compassion magic there. You're filling this space up with light. Whatever your clients bring in here, however ashamed they are of it, however heavy it might feel, gets transmuted through the light that's in the space. So that's how we can think about compassion magic. It's whatever we can look to and be with non-judgment transmutes. And so that is how light works for a compassion magician. So it could be literally they're looking at it. It could be holding the space within a room, a physical space, or an energetic space on a phone line in a Zoom room. Okay. And then lastly, vibration magic. This vibration magician speaks in terms of energy. They might see auras. They might see, colored light, ribbons of light. They might hear the vibration in someone's tone of voice when they speak a word. But they are able to see where the vibration is not light. So they'll be able to see within a client where what they're communicating or sharing or doing or being is not in alignment with their light or their highest good. So a lot of times people feel like vibration magic and sensation magic are similar, and they can be. If you are feeling the vibration in your body, then that's sensation magic. Vibration magic, often it's external, that you see it or you experience the energy, but it's outside of you. If it's internal and you feel it in specific areas of the body, like in your anatomy, it goes to sensation. But let's say you feel chills all over your arms, right? That could be either vibration or sensation, or maybe you have both. So it's not critical to name the vibration type. The goal of this work is to give you permission to know what you know and to understand that you are working at an energetic level with your clients, even if it doesn't seem like it. Even if you're doing practical work, you're actually doing light work if you are a magician like this. So I'm going to move into the 4 cloaks, and we are going to cover this in great detail in the Uncloaked retreat. But this has to do with why we hide our light, or what's in our intuition blind spot, if you will. So the first I call the love pattern. Again, I'm not going to go into this deeply. We experientially identify this at my live retreats. We do some sort of exercise or experience to help you locate what your current love pattern is. In the Uncloaked retreat, I'm not sure if we're doing that yet. It hasn't totally come through, but we're definitely going to look at which of the love patterns might be getting in the way of you totally shining your light. So the first is proving. I need to sound smart and prove myself and have all the right answers, and it's very head-based because I want you to like me, right? Saving, you need my help. I cannot not help you, therefore I'm going to do it for free, or I'm going to do it even when you're not committed. I'm going to do more work for you than you do for yourself, and I'm going to try to drag you into transformation, and that does not empower our light, right? It's not a place where we're trusting that our presence is enough. Protect. This is where we think our light is dangerous, so we want to hold it back. I had a lot of this, probably still do. It's a pattern to hide your light, to say they can't handle it, they don't want it, it's not safe to share with people. And then lastly, connect. This is where we're so focused on staying connected with someone else that we don't dare make a decision or create a behavior that might risk the connection, and therefore we don't honor our light. So that's the first of the 4 cloaks, the love pattern. Okay, and there's 4 love patterns within that. The second cloak is masculine, feminine polarity consciousness, or we could say it another way as patriarchy. And so we are going to explore how these ideas of masculine and feminine have influenced us around who we think we can be, who we have to be, who we think we can't be or won't be, based on the type of body we came in with and the messages we got about that from our family. So, for example, in my family of origin, males were definitely regarded as more important and significant than females. And so because of that, there's an immediate not enoughness that I embodied, right? And then on top of that, my father was an alcoholic, and my stepdad also was an alcoholic who got sober. But before he got sober, there were some experiences of really understanding he was not available. And so between feeling like males, we'll call it that, right? I'm totally aware of a continuum, and these are energies, but our society has forced us into this polarity of 2 genders, right? So between feeling like males or masculine was better or more important, and then having the experience of the actual men in my life being totally unavailable, I stepped into the role of providing a lot of masculine for my siblings. And because I wanted to be important, right? I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to be good. And this last year or so has been a process of unraveling that. And I'm not totally there yet. But what does my authentic soul expression look like on the continuum of masculine and feminine? Because in addition, being in a female body, I also agreed or denied how good I am at the masculine stuff, right? Like, oh, let's pretend not to be in order to, be okay as a female, while at the same time wanting to be all of the masculine things because that was better, right? It was better. And so both of those aspects of my expression have caused me problems in the past. So what's your version? We're going to look at that because that becomes a cloak, right? I'm going to be a good girl, and good girls don't have needs. They don't have desires. They're not bossy. They don't speak out. They don't tell people what to do. They're always grateful and appreciative. They're always hardworking and make sure everything happens, right? So there's all of this, the feminine piece, but then there's also, hey, the masculine isn't showing up. And so I'm gonna, because someone's got to. And that was, my experience. But we all have unique ways in which we were conditioned about what's okay and what's not okay for us. And Uncloaked is about just letting that go and letting our unique expression be beautiful. The third cloak is the good person paradigm of limited abundance. And I kind of alluded to this with the good girl feminine piece, but there's also a way in which we just want to be good, right? We don't want to be a bad person. And each of us has a different definition of what that means, but our good person cloak keeps us from trusting our light. One of the best decisions I ever made was I took one of my retirement accounts and I used it to invest in my business, or actually to pay off debt so I felt comfortable starting a business. This was 20 years ago, 18 years ago, something like that. And that felt like I was being a really bad person to use that money for that, because that wasn't the typical advice, right? And as soon as I did it, everything, I got so much money coming toward me, it was wild. So the good person paradigm, right? Where are you feeling like, oh, this is what a good person does, and it's getting in your way? And then lastly, the safety illusion. The safety illusion, it has to do with creating safety outside of ourselves. And when we think that safety is outside of us, we are always creating to avoid being unsafe, right? We're creating to avoid. And then there's no space to create, to simply allow source to move through us and to create what makes us feel alive in the moment. We shut that down when we think safety is the goal. So I talked about this early on when I got the vision for the Uncloaked event. This is a big piece of it, is really understanding that we come from light, we are light, we can't destroy our light by making wrong decisions as a human, and we go back to light. And so if we can embody that level of confidence of knowing that that's who we are, what decisions would we make differently in our time here, right? Are we going to make decisions to create just to avoid anything that's uncomfortable? Or are we going to make decisions to create what wants to come through us at this time and in this season? Let me look at my notes here. A couple things that I had written that I didn't say. Rules. So within the good person paradigm, for me, there were a lot of rules that I was given around money and what good people do with money and what bad people do with money. And honestly, a lot of what I have found is soul aligned for me to do with money, my family of origin would judge as bad or wrong. And that stopped me for a long time. In fact, that was one of my major transformations. Another thing I learned is a good person sets aside their own needs for the needs of others. And I'm in the middle of this as I'm here supporting my family right now. You set aside your own needs for the needs of others. And I am shifting that. As I'm here, I am making choices that the guilt-ridden version of me, the good girl version of me, would have never made. And it feels edgy. It feels edgy to decide I'm going to do this for myself in the midst of everybody having needs. And in moving with those edges, I know I'm learning more and more about what it is to work with a lighter touch. What if energy moves in my presence And my presence can be given in doses, in small doses, right? And still be potent. That's what light is. When we're wearing the cloak and it's, we're trying to hide it and we're acting like how we think we have to act to make other people happy, we're not potent. We're not potent. And everything takes longer and everything is harder and everything feels heavier. But when we let that go and we show up in all our sparkly, magic and light, a lot happens in a short time, energetically, right? Energetically on the field of light. Now, so many of my clients have experienced not being received for who they are. They show up cloaked, right? And they have a true deep-seated belief that, ooh, if I really said that, if I really brought my opinion here, people can't handle that. If I really speak up about my point of view, it might make people uncomfortable. And these are people who have been doing it anyway, right? But that belief is still present that I have to hold back. And that is why I've created Uncloaked, is to give us a felt sense of being able to be fully in your light and trust that that is enough and that will make you money and that you can work lightly with it. You can sprinkle it and still really serve and support people and have time and space for yourself and your own needs and your own desires and your own play and joy and abundance. And that actually serves to make your light even more potent, right? Because every time we step out of the cloak and show up fully and we don't die, we know we can do it again and again and again and again. So everyone coming to this particular virtual retreat is going to be that kind of person who's on the edge of letting themselves be fully seen in their light and in their magic, so they can work with a light touch and make a huge impact and make great money. So if that sounds like you, you can join Uncloaked at sourcedexperience.com/uncloaked. Use the code podcast. And this is our final episode in, I'm going to call season 1 of Activating Magic. We've been doing it for a while, so this is the first break that I'll be taking in some time. And we will see you at some point in 2026. If you join the private podcast, if you come to Uncloaked, you will be on my list. If you're not already, I have an email list. I mail every week something juicy of value. And that's where you'll know when we restart the podcast. So hop on my list. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions, you can email support@sourcedexperience.com and my team can get back to you. If you've loved something about this podcast, if you know that there is a type of guest or a type of episode that you want to see more of in the new season, please don't hesitate to email my team and let us know, because it's percolating. It's in the hopper. The next season is in the hopper. So I would love to hear. And I guess I'm going to end with the question I always ask my guests at the end, which is, if someone's just waking up to their magic, what advice would you have for them? So I'm going to end with that, and let's just see what wants to come through. You are a delight. A lot of times we think that our answer is something to go do. It's something outside of ourselves. And often my guests will say, for this final question, they will say, get yourself in community. Be around people who can see you and support you and understand who you are and where you're going. And I agree. And this is really important. It's super important. However, we can show up in community and still hide. We can show up in community and be cloaked, because We have so many reps of experiences where people don't understand who we really are. And they relate with us as if we're someone else, right? As if we are, I want to say less than, but I don't mean less than on a scale, but like less than all of the pieces of us, right? They're relating to a piece of us that they relate to, and they are not relating to the whole of us. And that is okay, because that is all that they can do. And we can't make people wrong for that. And it happens all the time. This is coming through like a vision. I see like a little seed in our heart, right? So we have a little seed in our heart that represents the truth of who we are. And it's our job to water it and nurture it and grow it. But we've made it other people's jobs. We have tried to put the onus on other people to be able to see who we are. And it's not fair, because when we can't even see it, how do we give that power to them, right? And then when they don't see it, we feel hurt and sad and upset. But we need to focus on our own seed. Nurture, water, and grow our own seed. And we do that in community. We do that in community, but we also need to be able to do it for ourselves, with ourselves, right? So when we go into community and we get the feedback about whether we are received or not received, that is simply feedback. That is simply information. And we take that information and then we use it to water our seed. So if we get information back from people that's in contrast to who we know we really are, and we feel defensive or sticky or irritated or upset, and we want to make that their fault or make it about them, but really that is simply contrast showing up to help us really understand more of who we are, and to ask ourselves, how do we express that better next time? Or not. Maybe we simply acknowledge it within ourselves and love on ourselves for it. So it's like the feeling I get about this message is this little seed in the heart, and we are loving on it and loving on it and loving on it and loving on it. And that is how our light becomes brighter. And so even people who are also in the light, they're on their journey, right? They are learning what is authentic for them, what is true for them, and what is not. They are learning. And so they may even be, a beautiful expression that you resonate with, and they may also fail to see parts of you. And that's okay. And that's okay, because they can see more of you than someone else did. And they can honor and acknowledge those parts that maybe you felt hesitant about. And they may miss other parts that are really important, but it doesn't matter yet. And then it will matter, right? And people will disappoint you because they won't be able to see the whole of you, because they're in their own human suit. And what a beautiful process it is. I remember in my coaching school, they had a quote that the purpose of relationship is to learn more of who you are in relation to one another. And I knew that to be true. And in this conversation, that's coming present again, that our love, our ability to love ourselves, more and more of ourselves, will improve our experience of being received in relationship. And the gold is really in where we're not received. So we want to work that muscle. Oh, okay. So that was an interesting message I wasn't expecting to come through today. More of that type of message is available within the Secret Podcast, where I really am tuning in and asking myself, and sometimes it's a logical answer and sometimes it's a channeled answer, but asking, what wants to be shared through this platform at this time to support people to alchemize the sticky stuff in their life into business gold. If that's you, go.sourcedexperience.com/pod. And I hope to see you and play with you live and in person on Zoom at Uncloaked in December. I'm off to season break. This has been a delight, and we'll see you in the new year. Join me on the other platforms. Big hugs. Bye, everyone.